Hi, we are here for another episode of Ask A Haitian. I am Sandra Florent, and for today's guest, we have the founder of Avanse Ansanm, Santra Denis. Is Dennis right or Denise? Dennis.
Dennis.
Dennis. Okay, just I was like one N, had to make sure. So today, we are going to talk to her. We're going to talk about her growing up Haitian. We're going to talk about her organization and what she would like to see from us millennial Haitians and just the Haitian diaspora in general. So Santra, why don't you introduce yourself to the guests, well, to the viewers?
Sure. So, my name is Santra Denis, first generation American, parents from Haiti by way of Gonaive and Portepet. I am a native to South Florida, super excited, and to still be in Florida, a resident of Broward County. My background is public health policy and management, but I've been working in nonprofit sector for the last 10 years. Currently, I'm the interim executive director of the organization called the Miami Workers Center, in which we do work at the intersection of gender, race, and socioeconomic status. So all things public policy, all things that have to do with Black people are things that I'm very passionate about, especially when it comes to Avanse Ansanm, all things having to do with advancing the Haitian community is what I really think we can do as the next generation of Haitian leaders or the current generation of Haitian leaders to move our communities forward. I'm one of four girls. Grew up again in a lot of Haitian culture was always all around me in South Florida. So I found it to be a purpose of mine to really do my part and play my role in moving our community forward.
Awesome. So you mentioned where your parents are from. Have you been back to Haiti? Have you been to either one of their parts of Haiti where they're from?
Absolutely. So I would say about 5 years ago, I hadn't been to Haiti in 20 years since I was about 10 years old. And then about 5 years ago, I started to go to Haiti frequently. So I've been to Haiti, I would say at least once or twice a year from the last 5 years, sometimes three times a year. And I was able to visit Portepet 2 years ago. And my father's side of the family, like, when are you coming? Haven't made it back to Gonaive, but definitely do plan to make it there. And I've visited many parts of the country, so I invite all Haitian Americans, all Americans to visit Haiti and learn a lot about the history and the culture of the people. It's an amazing experience to be an adult and really experience the nuances of Haiti. I often say that Haiti reminds me of Miami in so many ways, that Miami is a tale of two stories, that you have the Miami Beach, the Star Island, the wealthiest of the wealthiest, as well as you have the poor. You have some of the poorest parts of our state in Miami. And so if we can hold those two truths for Miami, we should be able to do the same thing for Haiti. Haiti is rich in culture, rich in money and goods and resources. There's also a lot of poverty in Haiti, and that's just real. But one doesn't take away from the other. It's the ability for us as human beings to hold those two things together and be okay with that while we work towards making sure that Haiti is better for its citizens and its people.
Very true. Now, est-ce que parle Creole? You know, that's the question that Haitians always ask, especially if you weren't born in Haiti, obviously. So do you speak Creole? Do you understand it? How is that language for you?
Sure, I'm parle Creole, écrit Creole. I have an accent because I was born in the United States of America. I'm not shy about my Kringlish speaking because, I often tell folks that the lens that we have to look at language through we have to be very careful because we can push a lot of people away around this language situation.
Talk to them.
Haitians born in Haiti, now living in America, will never speak English in the way that I do.
Nope.
Because they didn't grow up in America.
It's the nuances. They're
right.
Not going to get the nuances. You're not going to get the sarcasm. You're not going to
Exactly.
get the little, and then you're not going to speak English. The English that they speak in Miami is not the English they speak in New Jersey, where I'm at. So you're going to come here and I'm like, we don't say that up here.
Right. And so I've often said that, I think we are so, especially Haitian Americans, are so accepting of accents when it comes to people who come from Haiti and are in transition and learn our language in ways that Haitians are very judgmental about us who speak Creole with an accent, although we were born here. I went to school only in America. I've gone to get my master's all in an American system that primarily spoke English. And so I'm not shy about, I speak Creole. Yes, I have an accent. I wouldn't say I have a PhD in Creole, but I can find my way, as well as funny enough, I write Creole way better than I would say I speak all the time, because again, we're thinking in English because that's our primary language.
Exactly.
So conversation is like translating your thoughts into Creole to be able then to speak it. So I'm probably
it's a talent. It's a talent. But I do like so when you say you write Creole, how did you learn to write Creole? Was that something that your parents said, hey, you should write Creole, you should learn how to speak Creole? How did that go about? Because a few people that I've spoken to throughout the episodes of Ask A Haitian, some don't speak Creole at all. Some, they understand Creole, but they still will reply to you in English. So, and it's sometimes because of the parents, which I hate to blame Haitian parents because they don't like, but how would your child learn the language if you decided not to teach them? Where else were they going to figure it out? Or if you didn't emphasize, hey, let's take 5 minutes a day for you to write out Creole or something like that. So how did you go about learning how to write Creole?
Right. So I actually want to back up to that, to the commentary, because I think often we also should be nuanced about that. Like in Miami, Spanish culture is very much everywhere, right? So in ways that Haitian culture and Haitian Creole is not. So it's so easy for a child to maintain Spanish in ways that is not as easy for Creole, because the culture doesn't, like, you don't have shows in Creole on TV. You don't have restaurants where, you have Haitian restaurants, but you don't have entire cities where the only language you speak, I'm speaking of Little Havana or even Hialeah, where if you speak English, like, you won't find anyone to translate for you in America. That doesn't exist here for Haiti. I would also say that Haitian parents are also trying to learn English.
Yep.
And so it's in their advantage to talk to their kids in English, because they too want to learn the language. So I think it's a little bit nuanced. I've heard a lot throughout the years, people saying, oh, it's because we were embarrassed, because it was a hard time. No, I actually think it's more than that. I think that they were trying to learn English as well. There was a lot of prejudice. There were a lot of, you don't want your kids to have to go into that. I would want to protect my kids as well as best as I can. And so that's my little caveat around, really about what it means for Haitian Americans not to be able to speak Creole as much. I learned because I was talking to a guy who spoke mainly Creole, and we would text all the time, and I started really to pick up on it. But I would say the beginning of that is really, I grew up in Haitian church, and there's
Listen, I picked up a little bit of French, un poquito French, which is terrible. I was like, ooh, because the Jeune Esperance is where when you sing the French, you would and now not going to a Haitian church, I definitely know the bare minimum of French now, because it was like, where else am I going to get it? Like, am I going to go on YouTube and watch a French video? No, it's not going to work. But being integrated in that constantly, and Haitian church, you go to the Haitian church at least 5 times a week. So
right.
It's much easier.
Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But I think the basics were, to be honest, was church, reading the Bible in Creole, reading the hymns in Creole, also talking to the guy, as well as writing Creole is, to me, so easy. Like, Creole is very much, to me, the way it sounds, and I said this to my American friends because they struggle with saying Avanse Ansanm for quite some time, but I'm like, look at it. Haitian Creole is not as funky as a lot of the other language. Like, we don't have silent syllables. Like, it's really Avanse. I'm like, spell it out, all the letters, and you'll get there. And that's how I really kind of like, Santra, if it sounds like this is how it's written. And then a trick I'll say is there's certain letters that are not necessarily used that much in the Creole language. Like, S's are more used than C's, K's are more used than C's. And so all of those things are things that, I picked up, and I'm like, okay, if it's like sounds like a C or a K, most likely it's a K. If it's a C between an S and a C, mainly it's a S. Those are little tricks that I've told myself to really better learn how to write Creole.
Well, that's awesome. So you did mention Avanse Ansanm, which is your organization. So, and you also mentioned that your background is in public health. So can you tell us a little bit about your organization and what drew you to creating it?
Sure. So when I left Fort Lauderdale to go to college in Gainesville, while there was like Club Creole, for some reason, I'm not sure why I didn't necessarily get that much involved in Club Creole on University of Florida's campus. And so I really felt disconnected. And I think also in Miami, the context of Miami is that we get a lot of news from Haiti on our local TV. Like if anything is going down in Haiti, you're gonna see it on Channel 10, Channel 7, it's gonna break news. The Miami Herald is gonna write about it. And so there was a lot of negative things just growing up, always about Haiti, Haitian people, little Haiti. And so that starts to take a toll on you. And if we're not careful, we start to believe the very negative things that people tell us about ourselves. And so Avanse Ansanm really was like going to college, meeting all these phenomenal Haitian Americans, and then coming back and really seeing there's so many movers and shakers in South Florida that are Haitian Americans. CEO, doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs, hairdressers, just really doing amazing things. I'm like, why don't we know each other? Why isn't there a space for us? Why isn't there a space for us to co-create solutions to our community's issues, to really understand each other, to know what fields we're in? So we created Avanse Ansanm, one, to talk about preservation of culture for Haitian Americans. What does it look like for us to encourage people to learn Creole a little bit better, or know how to cook certain meals, or talk about what's happening in Haiti or the culture? To the second pillar, I would say, is around all economics and building community wealth. And so what does it look like for us to start investment clubs, to pull our resources together to make sure that we can borrow from each other and make more money in that way and put our money together and buy businesses or start a portfolio together. So we've been having really, really deep conversations about what it means to build community wealth in ways that we've seen it done in other communities that are far ahead. And two short examples is what we see Asians do in terms of nail salons, or what their model is. Their model is they all work together and they all put money to someone else being able to open up their own salon. And that's how they really open up so many salons, and that's how they're building wealth. And we know the Jews don't play about that. They buy houses so they can live together. They only support each other's businesses. They're really specific about bringing their dollars home. And so how do we look at those models to bring it home? And then the last kind of pillar is all around politics. Like we want to make sure we have a powerful community. And in our community, we think about politics from the Haitian lens, from the Haiti lens, like it's so negative, it's so this, it's so that. We look at politics in terms of power. Everything is a policy in the United States of America. Your health, education, home ownership, affordable housing, climate, everything can be linked to policy. And it's too many of us, especially in South Florida, if you're in Boston, if you're in New York, it's too many of us for us not to have somebody in Congress that is talking to them. It's too many of us for us not to have so many folks on school board, all that stuff. And I'm not saying it gotta always be Haitian. I'm just saying that they gotta see that we're a serious voter bloc, and they should take the needs of our communities very seriously. And so we're really pushing that, really telling people, hey, get involved, get active, let them know we here. And we say, and I like to say this really clearly, look, if you're in South Florida and you want to win, you want to talk to the Haitian community. The Biden campaign right now, or the Trump campaign, if you're in Florida, you want to talk to the Haitian community because Haitians vote. In South Florida, some of the busiest precincts are precincts in the Haitian community. We vote, we believe in that. We just want to make sure we're making informed votes. And so that's the work we're doing. I get super excited about it. And none of it is really specific to healthcare. I would say I went into public health policy and management, really taking a look at things to the policy angle. So anything really impacting Black people, poor people in a negative way, I'm all over it. And so that's how really Avanse Ansanm started, and that's the work we've been doing the last 3 years.
You mentioned a lot of good stuff, and I definitely want the viewers, if you are in South Florida, not in South Florida, look into Avanse Ansanm. And even if it's something that you see could be a need in your community, it may be something that you could recreate, because, there's nothing new under the sun. So if you're like, Atlanta could use Avanse Ansanm, do it. And you mentioned some things, and I'm not really a politics person. I don't know all of the nuances, but as I've gone to college, politics has been something that I realized that Haitian people don't get involved in, because like you said, they're looking at it from a Haitian lens. And so I remember when Barack Obama was running, all of a sudden, all the Haitians started to care. And I'm like, y'all should have been caring. And even now, the census. Do you know it's the first time in all the years of the census that they're now asking, are you Haitian? Are you Jamaican? Are you African? And I'm just like, why do you think they're asking you this? Because someone in the background has been like, listen, you can't just lump all Black people together, because in certain parts, all your Black people are Haitian people, all your Black people are Jamaican people. So if we can get ourselves to be counted, and it's like, well, we might need some, like you said, some parts where you go, they don't speak English. You know, we might need some more telehealth interpreters that speak Creole. We might need some more, you know, when we do the printed materials. Because I know even for me, like when, especially when they're doing the Corona updates and they do it and they translate it, and it's just English and Spanish, and people are commenting, well, what about Haitian Creole? What about French? It's like, you need people who are in those positions to constantly remind people, hey, we need another language. So I think it's very important that we say, we can't always look at politics from that Haitian lens. Like, you live in America now. You live here. You should know how to vote in your mayor, who's on the school board. Because you can't complain that your kid is not learning if you don't know that, well, your school board voted that all the teachers don't need to be accredited until 3 years after they become teachers.
Right.
You be like, wait, what? No, that doesn't make sense. Why? And then you think to yourself, well, how come in that neighborhood all the teachers need to be accredited within 90 days of becoming a teacher? But in my neighborhood, which is maybe predominantly Black or predominantly, you know, minority, no, your substitutes don't have to take the substitute evaluation test. You need to know these things. And I think the more we have organizations like yours that we talk to the millennials, we talk to the youngers, then they talk to their parents like, hey, you know, don't throw away that census paper that, you know, Haitians love throwing away mail. That don't, if it's not a bill, if it's not what's that ID left? No. You know, so if we can get us to start talking to them and infiltrate like their television stations, their radio station, I think it can help them understand the importance of policy. So what is something that your organization has done so far that you're very proud of?
Sure. I would say we're the most proud of the Haitian-American Millennial Summit that we held last year. We had about 100 plus folks join us, and we talked about everything. We talked about all the things that pains us as Haitian Americans as it relates to language, religion. We talked about Haiti. We had conversations with the pioneers, folks who really led the movement as it relates to when the Haitian refugees were coming down in Haiti, and they really held down the Haitian community and what their thoughts are of the Haitian community right now. And so like when folks were being held in the Creole detention center, when folks were being held in Guantanamo, when their rights were being violated, and Reverend Jesse
Jackson? Yeah.
Yeah, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, they were all speaking out about what the inhumane conditions that Haitians were living in Guantanamo, in Creole detention center. And for a lot of us in our generation, you know, say we're nouvelle, like we see we're here, we see we're in the school system, we see that, you know, folks can't discriminate against Haitians, and we think that's the norm, when actually there were folks who, you know, who fought like really hard fights to make sure that kids who came from Haiti can go to school. Like that wasn't a norm. Like they didn't let people go back to school. So that's what we're the proudest of. We made it very much Haitian. We had tablet, we had Haitian food, we had Haitian games. People played dominoes during lunch. They played casino. It was just such a great Haitian American experience. And we hope to continue to do that. This year we took a pause on the summit because it's a huge election year. Every year is a huge election year.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, my gosh, especially with the pandemic, all that stuff, we didn't have a summit, but we're looking to do some stuff around what does it mean for our community to really kind of grapple with mental health, healing, trauma that our community has experienced. And so post-elections, late November, early December, we'll be having some kind of like a healing retreat for Haitian Americans to really talk about things that pain us. What does it mean for us to always see negative things on the news, and how does that really impact? So I would say we're proud of that. We've had a Not Voted series going since June, really getting people ready for the Florida primary elections. You know, Florida is a swing state, so we're always holding our breath to see what's going to happen. We also did some cooking classes during the pandemic. People loved it. We did di jonjon, and we also did some fui thai, really helped folks understand for themselves how to make this food. Also for folks who I would say relationships where with folks who are not Haitians, but they're married to Haitian people, they want to learn Creole too. They want to learn how to make food as well. And so we've gotten such great feedback from that as well.
That's awesome. I really, you did, like you said, Florida is a swing state, and I know Biden's campaign, I think they have a surrogate in Florida right now, I believe. And then Kamala's chief of staff is a Haitian woman as well. So you see just that, like, listen, Haitian women, Haitian men, we're rising. Like, you need us. So it's good to see. And I love that your organization is tapping into different things that could be useful. The food, that's one way to bridge the gap. A lot of the food that we make come from, Africa. So an African can see that, like, oh, right, we do make a fried plantain similar to that. Oh, we do make, a stew dish similar to that. So I think having kind of like a well-rounded organization that just shows people different ways to get engaged. I like the idea of the retreat because, like you said, every election is important, but this one it's a doozy because it's like the house is burning, but people want to talk about the lawn. Listen, we can worry about the lawn when the house is done burning. Like, let's put out the fire first. Then we can tackle the rest. But we just like, no. So, and it's getting very divisive. I can already see that. And I know when it comes to immigration, oftentimes it's the Black immigrants that get the brunt of the issue. It's like, oh, those Haitians, they've been here since the 80s. They ain't never, and it's like, well, why are you bothering us? And I know I've talked to, like, what we do to y'all? And like you mentioned, like, how people have fought for us. And I've had this conversation with other Haitians. Like, if you were in high school, even after the 90s, there was still Haitian Beatdown Day. Like, I graduated high school in 2004. There was still Haitian Beatdown Day. And it was like, people found out you Haitian. It was just like this animosity. And it's like a trickle down, like, well, you weren't even around when they were saying that Haitians had AIDS, but you see how long it took to take away some of that negative stereotype. Now everybody want to be Haitian. Everybody got a Zopound. And it's like, to see that change, but I don't want it to be such a, like, don't take us from this poverty mindset to now you take us to the other extreme. Like, well, if you want to fight somebody, get you a Haitian. No, let's avoid that type of thing. But I'm loving to see like an organization out there that's just trying to tackle it from different angles, because that's definitely something that we need, because Haitians are not a monolith. So someone might be attracted to your organization because, they see the things that you're doing on as far as the policy end or getting us involved in policy, but somebody else might see the community around a retreat, the mental health aspect. They love it. Now, in regards to your parents, because we know Haitian parents play a big role in the upbringing of their children, how do they feel about you and your organization or your career path that you decided to take? Were they supportive, or were they, more like, why don't you just be something else? Why don't you just do something else?
Right. I mean, funny enough, I grew up, and I often think about this as a game changer for me. So very early on in my life, I had my father's younger brother who basically came from Haiti, went to Bahamas, and from Bahamas went to Florida State. And so and I remember as a child going to his graduation, I had cousins who my mother lived with when she first came from Haiti, who also went to Florida State. So it was very much like, y'all are going to college. Y'all are not only going to college, y'all are going away for college because there are better schools in the northern part of the state.
See, that's so good, because a lot of, like, I'm first generation college, like it was like, you're going to go to college, but we don't know how you're going to get there. Like, I guess that's what they do in America, is go to college. So it's great. So I tell people sometimes, like, that gap, you just filled in the gap for the next 5 generations of your family, because the next one's going to be like, well, I'm going to get 5 master's degrees because my great-great-grandmother already went to college, and then my great-great-great-aunt already went. So it's like the gap is getting shorter on what your family lineage can do, because they've already accomplished something that is normal now. It's like, it's normal to them for them to go to college and go away to college. Where as for me, going away to college was like a foreign concept. Like, wait, you're gonna go to where? Why? There's
Right.
you can't go to a 2-year college. Like, no, my aspirations are a little bit bigger than that. Like, you know, so it's very good to see that it was invested in you. Like, it wasn't something foreign to you to go to college.
It was, I would even say that, funny enough, it's 4 of us girls, and we all are college grads. And, you know, I don't say that in a boastful way, because I do believe that the odds are stocked against so many Black people. And we're not better because we make it out. We just are lucky that we meet people in our lives that could serve as, what I said to my uncle, is a game changer. Like, that was the baseline. Like, if he come from Haiti in Bahamas and go to college, y'all who born here, who speak the language, who, you know, that is the baseline. So because we had that baseline, he was in our lives, I would say very active in our lives. We always knew that you graduate from high school, you go to college. And so in terms of my career choice, I did public health, and I think my family always thought I was going to be a doctor at some point. And, you know, me and bodily fluids, I think at some point I wanted to be a doctor too. And I went and shadowed someone in the hospital. It was actually a respiratory therapist that made me realize, oh no, this ain't for me. Because there was so many bodily fluids, it was mucus, I just was like, no.
Me too. I was like, you should be a nurse, because Haitian people love to tell you have people skills. No, bon avec moun. No, bien gentil. No. High pressure environment, bodily fluids, cold blue. No. Sandra, it's not for me. It's not, no.
Because if you pass out, I might pass out too. And if you throw up, I may throw up too. So also, I volunteered for a hospital one day.
Me too.
My first day, I quit because somebody had, on my first day volunteer, I never went back. But somebody died, and the person was an organ donor, but the family hadn't come in to see the body yet. I think they were traveling in to come see. And so while the family came in, the organs had already did some work, and everybody was looking like, what are we gonna do? I'm like, you know what? Actually, this kind of situation, I didn't sign up for this. But my leg, parce que ma conseil après mon life. So that was it. That was like the end of the end. Like, I know this is not for me. I wanted to.
I'd have quit right then. I'd have quit right, like, you know, me pointy. What is it? The apron they give you? Because I used to volunteer at a hospital too. I loved it until it was like, I gotta do the people. No. I like the office stuff. I like the filling out the paper stuff. No. I was like, well, I can't. No, Sandra, we're gonna. No. I like office work. I like computers. I like talking to people on the phone, on the floor with the sick people. Not so much. No. Count me out.
And sick people, my sisters think I'm a jerk when I say this. Sick people scare me. Like, they do. Like, I'm always like,
count me.
You become a different person. Like, the person you knew, even when you see family and friends who get really sick, like, I'm always really nervous about them, because I'm always like, well, who is this person? Because this is not a person I know. Like, their face changed, their skin complexion changes. So that's how I knew it wasn't for me. I mean, they've been truly supportive. I don't think Haitians really understand nonprofit work. I don't. You can explain it.
Non, c'est pas yo pa paye moi, c'est compagnie pa fè li pour l'argent. Comment yo pa fè pour l'argent?
So, so I just let them tell their friends that I'm just in the community doing a lot of work. Then their friends say, oh, they saw me on TV, and that's it. That's enough for them. And so that's what it is.
That's great. So if you had a message for, I would say we're in the millennial bracket. So like your Generation Z, you know, even younger, what advice would you give them as far as being Haitian American? Because more than likely, Generation Z, some of them might still be in that first generation of even graduating from high school. Because, you know, some of us, especially if you, depending on where your family is from, and like education, like Haitians love education, but you can't, America's different. They focus on making sure you got a place to live, food to eat. So sometimes you can fall through the cracks. So what advice would you give to the Generation Z as far as, you know, cultivating that Haitian culture, continuing, you know, passing on the baton? What advice would you give to them?
I would say that, one, do the work to know who you are and where you come from. do the work, do the work, do the work. You know, for so long, I think, even our generation, I would say, we're super critical of Haitians and Haiti and everything. And I think we gotta do the work to be well read, to really understand the nuances and everything. And it just reminds me again of what I said, you know, we could be great and be struggling at the same time, right?
Correct.
And so I often have to tell us, you know, Haitian Americans especially, we've been through a lot. Like, we are helping to navigate our parents through Haitian American culture, but we not American enough.
Listen, I've been translating documents since I was 6 years old, since I learned how to read. I'm exhausted, okay?
That part.
I've been at the bank. I know how to balance a checkbook like nobody's business. I'm exhausted. I don't think people understand. Like, it's a lot. And I think for Generation Z, my only is like, they get to relax a little bit more than I got to relax. And I'm like, I don't understand. Y'all not.
I would say, funny enough, I do believe that things, I think it has to do with the Haitian culture. Let me say this. We're always in fight mode. And I think in the generations to come, I would hope that their fight looks different.
That's
like, I don't believe in passing down struggle. I think the struggle should be different. So for Generation Z specifically, I would say, do the work, know yourself, never make people make you feel bad about what you are and who you are. 3 is, there's so many different options out here. For us, it was only the 4-year degree track, and that was instilled in us. I truly believe in having a college degree, especially as a Black person, because I even say, listen, there are doors you go to, or doors you go to try to open, especially when you're Black. Certain doors won't open for you just because you don't have a college degree. And the trades, you will always have a job. So plumbers, just get something. Make sure that you have something to fall back on is really what I think our parents are trying to say when they wanted us to be doctors and lawyers. It's like, you know, how can you come out of school and have something that will keep you steady, that will make sure that you won't, you know, be without. And so think about that, have a backup plan out. And I would also say that the work continues. And it may not look like the first generation who are protesting to make sure that we can get in school, to make sure that our people can get out of the Chrome Detention Center. I would research what Haitians went through in the Chrome Detention Center. You got to see this stuff. You got to hear this stuff. You got to ask your parents, because a lot of us never asked our parents, what happened when you got here? What experience? What did you say? Who did you live with? What was your first job? Ask them those questions. Because, honey,
when you hear what your parents, when my mother, I forget, like she's told me the story, but as I've gotten older and I can ask questions, and I was like, you did all of this to come here? And I think when my mother was coming, it was either, if you go to Florida, you're going to work in the field. Like, you're going to be a migrant worker. Oranges, strawberries. And my mother was like, I don't think, like, I've been sure she's from Dedin. So in Dedin, that's rice. So she was like, I already did rice plantation in Haiti. I'm not coming to America to do that. Where else can I go? There's like, well, you can go to New Jersey. You're going to live with such and such, and it's more factory work. And I guess she was just like, do I want to work outside again, or do I want to try? And she, and then just when she tells you how they interrogated her at the airport, what you coming here for? She don't speak the language, and they got the Haitian interpreter, and the Haitian interpreter is just as mean as the American. My mother don't know, even unfortunately to this day, my mother doesn't know English. That's a whole nother thing. But to have someone that looks like you interrogating you, and they told her when she come here, you better act as nice, you better smile. And I'm like, I'd had an attitude. Like, you're not about to question me. I pay my money for a visa. I'm like, and I'm like, Mama, you just sat there? I was like, but you paid your money to be here. Like, you was on a plane. Like, how do they think you got here? They was like, no, girl, I just sat there. I answered, nodded my, and I'm like, damn, to be in America? Like, you really need to ask your parents, like, what did they do? Like, how was that when they got, like, how TSA pulls you out the line? It's the same, and you in a little room, and they ask you, so, who exactly are you going to be?
I have a friend of mine who, because we had this conversation, she asked her mom, and her mom told her that she was pregnant with her when she came to America, and she came on a boat. And when she came on a boat, I I forget, the U.S. Coast Guard interceded them as like they were really, really close to the coast. So my mom jumped in the water. And because she was pregnant, she went to the hospital. And a family came and seeing her, she gave birth in the hospital. A family member came and saw her and was like, you can't stay, you need to take your baby, let's go. I mean, before then, they didn't really have like all those securities for babies. So she took her baby and she left. And that's the story of her. I mean, her mom took the biggest risk.
Yep.
For her and her child. She knew she was going to have a better life. So I think that gives you a lot of purpose. It reminds you that, look, that's why I think it's so important for Haitian Americans to visit Haiti, and to visit Haiti from, again, not such a critical, negative, like, you know, we go with our American points of views, but visit Haiti from a lot.
Right. Don't come with the nonprofit mindset too. Like, if you treat people like they a charity case, they're going to act like a charity case. If you treat them like they people, I don't like when people go to Haiti and they treat it like, oh, I'm mission. No, go visit, go learn something, take somebody with you, and you will receive that energy that you put out. But if you're visiting like, oh, I'm helping the poor little Haitians, well, they're going to act like poor little Haitians then.
You know what I say? I go to Haiti and I spend my money. I buy art, I buy food. You know, you selling something, I'm buying.
Exactly. How much this cost, my son? Okay, fine.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to rob people. I tell people, like, even this painting, I'm going to lift my camera so y'all can see it. Even this painting that I got, most of the paintings in my living room are from Haiti. And tell me what the price is. Like, I'm not gonna let nobody, like, you know, bring the prices too high for me, but you did this. Like, this is, how much will we pay for this painting in America? If I could really zoom in on this, you will see, like, there's texture. It's not just like paint. Like, there's texture that you can touch. And like, yeah, I'm gonna buy art. I'm gonna buy food. I'm gonna buy rum. Everybody who look, that's how I'm going to spend my dollars to make sure that the economy in Haiti I'm not going to only spend my dollars in American hotels in Haiti. I'm going to go down, be with the people, and spend my dollars to make sure that, because let me tell you something, my Black dollars, because I'm Black and I make this, and I make it in America, I'm going to go spend it in places where Black people can have a shop.
Exactly.
And that's just my personality. And that's what I think we can do for Haiti. But also, it's so great. Like, Haiti gives us a peace. I feel like there's classism, but honey, everybody Black in Haiti. I mean, you do have white folks but the Haitian Constitution said we all Black, so we all Black in Haiti. So that's just a different experience.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think for Black Americans who like, if you didn't go to a HBCU, or if maybe you don't live in a Black neighborhood, it's a different type of feeling when you can go, everybody Black, like not just in your little town, everybody. No, it's like when I went, every time I go to Haiti, it's like, yo, everybody Black, and I understand everything everybody's saying. You know, it's just, I mean, granted, they want to talk about my Creole with my English accent, but it's fine. We're going to laugh, we're going to joke, but I can still understand you, though, and you understand me, so that's all that. So I'll joke, too. I'm like, oh, you understand English, then? No, c'est anglo à parler. Oh, well, you understand English, then. If my Creole is English, then you understand English. That's great. You bilingual, too. So I think it's very important. I do hope generations, either younger generations, and even I think maybe some of the millennials and Generation X who may be a little bit removed, like, really, like you said, get to know the culture, read a book or two. Just like how we had to study American history in school and stuff, you should kind of do your own learning. It's because I learned things about Haiti all the time, you know, depending on where your parents' education status was in Haiti. Maybe they went to school, maybe they didn't, so maybe they cannot give you all of that formal education, but at least ask about the town that you grew up in. The last time I went to Haiti, I went to Didi, and it was like, I think their 200th or something anniversary, and so yeah, my mom was like, yeah, the guy who founded Haiti, every year they celebrate. Oh, well, this is dope. Why we don't got this in America? We're gonna celebrate all the time, and it's like it's a week-long party.
Right.
You know, I was like, well, this is festive. They got signs. I was like, well, this is dope. And so I learned about something that in person. So if you just do that education, at least finding out where your parents are from, what do they do, what is your town known for, you know, I think it will be very helpful. So, of course, before we go, anything you need to plug as far as Avanse Ansanm or you yourself that you would like the viewers to know about, or how they can get involved if they're not in South Florida?
Sure. So avanseansanm.org is our website. Avanse Ansanm on Facebook, Avanse Ansanm on Twitter, Avanse.Ansanm on IG. You can, on our website, you can join our mailing list. On all of our social media pages, we have a link tree. You can get up to speed on all of our events. It's so much more easier for folks who are not in South Florida to participate because most of our stuff are virtual right now. But I think we're not doing this for, I would say, South Florida in general. I think, from my perspective, South Florida outside of Haiti houses, or Florida holds the largest demographic of Haitians outside of Haiti. And I think that in terms of movement building, in terms of, let's say, best practices, Florida is ground zero for what does it look like for Haitian Americans to move forward or to impact policies in government in a real way. Because we have the numbers here, and New York has the numbers, and Boston has the numbers, and Jersey has the numbers. Like, we got to be a little bit more strategic. And that means that I'm not building this in South Florida. For me, I'm like, how do I get connected with the movers and shakers who really want to see this happen in Jersey and New York? Because we just actually started a think tank. So all the academic people, let's think together. Let's not think alone, because we know from the history of our culture that anything that of Haiti, anything that we've accomplished that's been meaningful has been done together. And so let's think together. Let's dream together. Let's never stop dreaming for a better Haiti, and not only a better Haiti, for a better America for Haitians. A lot of Haitians live in America and things are bad for them. Like, sometimes I go to people's homes because we do a lot of outreach, and I'm like, they left Haiti and never left Haiti.
Yep.
And so, like, how do we have patience with our parents to continue to push them? Hey, you can still accomplish your dreams. Hey, you can still learn. A lot of us got bad attitudes when it comes to our parents and helping them and teaching them. Hey, calm yourself down, because you don't know. Again, when you think about the sacrifices that they have made, and that doesn't mean you got to be indebted to people. You don't owe people nothing.
Set your boundaries and then do the work to help your parent. It's just, listen, that's what I learned from therapy. Setting boundaries in Haitian culture is a whole nother, but you have to do it. You have to understand. And it's a little bit about, for me, it was understanding my mom never really assimilated, because it does depend on your parent. My mom was not an assimilated Haitian. She did not want to assimilate to American culture. So anything that involved America, she was like, no, I'm Haitian, I'm not going to get involved. But then I was like, so the bus that you take because you don't drive, how do you think that works out?
Right.
Like, you complain about the drug dealers on the street. How do you think that it's policy? It's if you don't go to these meetings and complain to these people, my high school is bad. Well, how do you think if you don't come to the parent-teacher, you got to immerse yourself. Every Haitian person is not going to be able to take their money, go back to Haiti and build a house. I know it's the dream, but just like everyone want to be a basketball player, it's the dream. It might not going to happen. So now that you live in America, what are you going to do to make sure you have the best life you can in America? And
even if that's the plan, for the time that you here, it has to be equitable for us right now.
Exactly.
Right? For your kids. And I say this, and I got to run in a minute.
Yes.
But I say this really, and I mean it. In the next 10 years, the census is right now. In the next 10 years, us who are millennials, we may have kids.
Yep.
Right. So the decision that we're making right now is going to impact our children.
Yep.
Going to impact where they go to school, how much is available for them in Pell Grants, how much is available for them in resources. And so I got to be serious about serious things. And I say this to Haitians all the time. Like, you want to work, we want to be about, making individual money. Honey, that's not enough.
We got to be collective.
We got to be collective. And we got to be serious about these policies that impact us. Health, wealth, education, you name it. There are communities who are progressing, and there are those of us who are still behind. And it is all of our jobs to make sure that we can get on that same page. And I'm not saying equal, like we want to be the new
oppressors.
I'm just saying, like, I believe in equity. I believe people should have a fair shot. I don't believe in that struggle life forever. The struggle life got to end with us.
Agreed.
All we're going to put that pressure on them every chance we get. And that's that.
Awesome. Well, I thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Enjoy the rest of your day. And this has been Ask A Haitian.
Thank you.